And so, ladies and gentlemen, New York City is giving America a preview of where the Democrat Party is headed. The party's not moving toward Hakeem Jeffries and the so-called moderates. It's moving toward Zohran Mamdani and the radical Democrat socialist wing. And now we are seeing it in real time. New York has just implemented a rent freeze, one of the major ideas Mamdani campaigned on, ladies and gentlemen. At the same time, he's saying he wants to stand with temporary protective status holders after the Supreme Court ruling that came down. And Trump is already responding, warning everyone of what will happen to New York City and anywhere else that adopts these failing policies. As always, smash that thumbs up button. That's the best way to let me know you enjoy the content. For more, subscribe to the channel. Let's start right here.
Mayor Zohran Mamdani taking a victory lap on social media after making good on one of his biggest campaign promises. For the first time ever, the New York City Rent Guidelines Board voted to freeze rents for both 1- and 2-year leases for stabilized units. The mayor just posted this video moments ago.
New York, the Independent Rent Guidelines Board just froze the rent. That means if you're one of the more than 2 million New Yorkers who lives in a rent-stabilized apartment, your rent's going to be frozen next year.
In a major victory for Mayor Mamdani, the Rent Guidelines Board approves a rent freeze for nearly 1 million rent-stabilized units. But landlords call the process a farce, telling Christina Fan renters will ultimately pay the price.
This is just cosplaying fairness. This isn't real fairness.
Jan Lee, whose family has owned this Chinatown building for nearly a century, is crying foul, accusing the Rent Guidelines Board of freezing rent, despite mounds of data he says shows rising costs for landlords.
They're not even hiding the bias anymore. The mayor had campaigned on a rent freeze. He appoints 75% of the board, and now he's got his hand on the scale.
Just hours before Thursday's meeting, drama unfolded when Christina Smith, a member of the board who represented landlords, resigned from her post, accusing the process of being broken and unjust. But it did little to sway the results, as the Rent Guidelines Board voted 7-1 in an historic first to approve a 0% increase on both 1- and 2-year leases. Renters say the measure was necessary as they struggle to combat inflation and cuts to social services.
Now, the left is celebrating this rent freeze like it's some major victory. And on the surface, I understand why people hear rent freeze and they start, oh, yay, rent is frozen. Oh, that's good. Listen, I get it. People are struggling and they're going to take the easiest way out that sounds the best, which is, hey, not paying for something, right? But here's the problem. You froze the rent. Okay. Did you freeze the mortgage payments? Did you freeze the insurance bill? How about the property taxes? How about repairs? You know, those still exist. Labor costs, plumbing, roofing, heating, electrical work, garbage fees, water bills, maintenance. I mean, every other expense that comes with running a building, right? No. And that's the problem. But let's keep going.
It's going to do so much to really affect my life in a good way.
I feel very good because in New York, that's one of the biggest problems that we have. You know, rent is high and we really needed it stabilized.
Mayor Mamdani, who campaigned on freezing the rent, insisted the board's decision would be fair and impartial. He responded to the outcome saying, in part, this is the relief that working people across our city deserve. But Lee says it's renters who the freeze will ultimately hurt.
If we keep eroding one side of the equation, something's got to give, and the people in those buildings are going to suffer. So there has to be some kind of fairness and recognition of the math.
The freeze will impact more than 2 million rent-stabilized tenants throughout the city and will affect leases that begin after October 1st of this year.
The left wants you to picture every landlord as some giant Wall Street corporation sitting on piles of cash. But New York still has everyday owners, family owners, people who bought buildings decades ago, people who live in the same building as their tenants. And for a lot of them, that building is their retirement. It's their life's work. And here's the crazy part. Those small owners are already disappearing, ladies and gentlemen. According to a Just Fix analyst cited by the Wall Street Journal, corporations now own about 90% of New York City's multifamily housing stock. While, yeah, individual owners are down to about a little bit under 10%. And so when you keep squeezing the small business owner, think about this. Who do you think survives in the long run? Not the little guy and the so-called evil corporation that the Democrat socialists claim that they are fighting to stop. Do you really think that this is going to affect them in the long run? No. They have a big enough portfolio to eat the costs. That's the brutal reality. Hate to break it to you. And that's the problem. Mamdani's selling bad solutions to a serious problem that, sure, in the short term sounds great, but in the long term, it creates real issues. And if they get to have their way, what comes next will be the government housing. They already said it. Because the rent freeze is only the first step. Next, they'll squeeze out the private owner, wait for the building to become distress, then push more government-controlled housing. And so take a look at this.
This is the first time ever that the city has frozen 2-year leases for rent-stabilized apartments. And before this, they'd only voted to freeze 1-year leases 3 times ever. This move affects nearly 1 million units. It passed 7-1 after the board's only pro-landlord representative, Christina Smith, resigned in protest just hours before the vote. Landlords say even before rent freezes, they struggle to maintain rent-stabilized buildings. That is why small family landlord Natalia Bonanno decided to list the last of her family's buildings for sale a week ago, before the vote even happened. She had no trust in the process or in her city.
This just shows that the Rent Guidelines Board is not as nonpartisan and apolitical as they make themselves out to be. There was no reason, no data to support this type of rent freeze. All the data shows the cost of everything is going up, including taxes and insurance, and they still chose to just fulfill the mayor's campaign promise.
Bonanno has had 2 buildings on the market for months and listed the last 3 last week. She's been unable to sell any of them. And now there are concerns that this could be part of the larger plan to turn rent-stabilized buildings into government-owned housing.
This appears to be the plan, because the next plan they want to pass is the ability for the city to intervene on the sale of these properties. The city would then dictate who you can sell your building to. So this does seem to be overall the goal of the housing advocates who just don't believe in private property.
I mean, if small family owners can't keep up with the mortgage or repairs, insurance, taxes, labor costs, eventually they're going to be forced to sell. And then the Democratic Socialists in New York, the same people who Mamdani has around him who believe home ownership is racist. People who believe private property should not exist. People who want individuals more dependent on government, ladies and gentlemen, will turn around and say, see, private property failed. The government has to step in. But private ownership did not fail. It was squeezed. And if you remember, Mamdani also backed a proposed measure that would allow the city to seize private property with severe code violations and long-term neglect, then transfer that property to so-called responsible parties. So now, you kind of see where this is going, right? Rent freeze, squeeze the owner, let the building become distressed, then use the distress as an excuse for more government control. I mean, really. But we got President Trump. He's warning everyone about Democrats electing communists and how it always starts out like it's such a feel-good story. That's where we're at right now. Everyone's happy. Folks are riding high. But that only lasts briefly. Eventually comes the downfall. And so take a listen.
Elected in New York City recently, they're communists, they're not social democrats. They want to completely destroy the traditional American way of life. Communism is very easy to sell. It destroys everything, but it's very easy. I'll be honest, I think I'd be the greatest communist in history. I'd give free rent. Ladies and gentlemen, from now on, you don't have to pay any rent. From now on, anybody wants a house, don't worry about it. Just pick the house you want. Everybody gets free food. Everything is free from this point forward. Everyone's going to vote for me. The problem is, after 2 or 3 years, the country is a disaster area. The country fails. They always do. It always does. So easy to sell. That first year, boy, you're the most popular. It's happening right now in New York and California. But you'll start living in squalor. You'll live in squalor. There will be no food. There will be no housing. There will be no military. There will be no law and order. There will be no nothing. There will be no nothing. You'll be a third world inhabitant in every way, and everyone will suffer or die. You'll suffer or die. That's what happens. For thousands of years it's been happening by different names. thousands of years. I would be, I'm telling you, I'd be the greatest communist in history. It would be so easy. You wouldn't have to work. You could stay home. The problem is a couple of years go by, the whole place collapses. Always does. Always has.
And so Mamdani's been making his move. He's not just pushing a rent freeze. He's becoming the face of where the Democrat Party is headed. The old Democrat establishment, the Hakeem Jeffries wing, is getting pushed aside by the new socialist wing that believes more government control is the answer to everything. And you can see that same pattern with immigration after the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 and allowed the Trump administration to end temporary protective status for Haitians and Syrians, affecting about 350 to 360,000 people. Mamdani immediately positioned himself as the resistance against Trump. Check it out.
We saw today the Supreme Court make a decision that is putting so many people's lives in jeopardy. And I just came back from a rally with 1199 as I stood alongside a number of Haitian New Yorkers who are concerned about what this means for their status in our city. And frankly, this city, the one that we love, is one that has been built by so many from so many different parts of the world. And that includes our Haitian brothers and sisters, our Syrian brothers and sisters. And we stand here ready to be in solidarity with all of those who are concerned by today's decision, and beyond just language of solidarity, actions of solidarity. Now, what that means when it comes to our city is if you are worried about what this means for your status, if you're worried about what this means for your family, I would encourage you to call our Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs hotline, and you can do so at 1-800-354-0365. Again, that's 1-800-354-0365. Now, many of you know this is a city of 8.5 million people. More than 3 million of us were born elsewhere. I'm one of them. We're a city that's proud of our immigrant heritage. And when we think about, especially what Haitian New Yorkers have had to deal with, not just for weeks or months or years, but frankly for decades, we have seen a cruelty that has become normalized. And to have people who frankly taught the world about freedom have their own freedom be put in jeopardy by the actions of a Supreme Court and a federal administration, it is not only cruel, it's something that we will not ever accept. And so we stand here as New Yorkers proud of standing in solidarity and proud to do everything that we can to keep people in their homes and to keep people together.
And so Mamdani's big plan is to freeze the rent, invite more illegal immigrants, and seize private property from small owners. And ultimately, all of this accomplishes what? The goal of making people more reliant on government and giving government more power. But I want to finish with this from Fox News, so take a look.
These people are here to purge the heavyweights out of the party, straight up. And the more the Democrat establishment fights back against the commie wave, the wave will just get bigger. Being attacked by the establishment legitimizes the commies with the base. The brawl is going to last years. Morning Joe, the must-see Beltway show that keeps the Democratic coalition together, is in mourning.
You have a real wave happening. Joe, I think the Democratic Party, and you've got now 2 Democratic socialists, is taking on an overall persona. This is where the energy is in the party. You and I can agree to disagree on this. I believe the Democratic Party overall is going too hard left. I believe there is anti-Semitism in there. We'll save that for another day. But I believe this is a branding issue for the Democrats that they are going to have to answer for.
Branding? Well, if you let communists into your party, then you're okay with communism. What kind of American political party hears someone say, oh, well, we're here to destroy Western civilization, and says, come on in, Big Tent. That's like, you're the babysitter? Your name's Charles Manson? Come on in, Big Tent. Are they a threat? Absolutely. Are they also so stupid it's kind of funny? Yes. One of these little elves actually wants to have government-run airlines.
My hot take is we need to abolish pre-check. I've got like a million beefs with the airline industry and the process of having to fly. We need to like nationalize the airline industry. But let's start by abolishing pre-check.
So no pre-check, no clear. Everybody waits in one big old line, and Mayor Pete's your pilot. New York's actually been dipping its toes into communism for a while. Nearly half the city's on Medicaid. 20% of the city on food stamps. 1 out of every 3 renters lives in a rent-stabilized apartment, like the rent hasn't gone up in 30 years. 5% of New York City lives in the projects. New York City has a bigger budget than the whole state of Florida, and we're still in debt. No wonder. Everything's free, and the rest is stolen. Now, it's not just foreigners voting commie. These liberal women, you know, they get the college degrees in, like, sociology. They move into Manhattan, and they can't get a job. Shocking. So they can't afford rent. So a bunch of single women with no jobs and degrees have to shack up in the same apartment in the Bronx. And they've been taught in school America's evil, so they get angry. And they vote communist to get revenge. They call these women downwardly mobile. And they're going to take the whole city down with them. But we're not going to let them do it. Last night, Trump spoke at the Great American State Fair and reminded us that life can be hard, but we persevere and always, always win.
All right, so now I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts on the rent freeze. How do you think it's going to turn out for New York City moving forward? Leave your questions or comments, thoughts, and your feedback down below. I appreciate when you guys chime in. Don't forget you enjoy the content. Smash that thumbs up. For more, subscribe to the channel. And as always, until next time.